Let's get to the word. And I believe that this word is going to bless you. It has blessed me. I started seeing things in different light and understanding, which I was not able to see for many years in the beginning of my ministry. Exodus chapter 4 and verses 10 onwards, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. It is up to 17, the whole passages, but I would only take up to 14. It says, "But Moses said to the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, either in the past or since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and of tongue." Then the Lord said to him, "Who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you what you shall speak." But he said, "O my Lord, please send someone else." Then the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, "Is there not Aaron your brother, the Levite? I know that he can speak well. Behold, he is coming out to meet you, and when he sees you, he will be glad in his heart." And then he says, "You shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth and with his mouth, and I will teach you both what to do." Wow. I see the situation here. Moses has seen some of the greatest miracles in life by now. He has seen some of the powerful things that can never be erased out of your memory. But in spite of whatever he has seen, he still has some fear. And my topic would be, it's okay to have some of the weaknesses. God allows it, and sometimes God gives them to us. But nothing can stop us from achieving our goals that God has already purposed for us before the world began. Nothing. So God knows what He's allowing. God knows what He's sending our way. God knows what we're going through. And He says it's okay. As long as you can trust me, you can do it. And Moses time and again said, I cannot, I'm not too good. But before that, he said, nobody's going to trust me. That was his first objection, first reaction to what God said to him about his destiny or about the destiny of Israel. He said, I know you have a good plan, but I don't think I am worthy of that trust. The reason is, for the last 40 years of their slavery, I was not with them. I tried to help them in the beginning, but one act of mine caused such damage to the cause that I had to run, and these people went through some of the difficult situations, and I was not with them. I am here in the safety of Midian, and they are persecuted there in the last 40 years. And do you think they're going to trust me and believe me as their leaders? You know, when a leader stands with you in the worst of your time, that's when he gains confidence. That's where he gains kind of an appreciation and approval of his leadership. And Moses is not there with these people for the last 40 years. And still God is sending him. And he's saying, I want you to go back. Now, God, you could have chosen Aaron, because Aaron is there. You could have chosen somebody else. You could have. No, but God has done this thing, the election thing, before the world began. So Moses, you're not going to change my mind. You're not going to tell me that I have chosen a wrong person for the right purpose. I have chosen a right person for this right purpose, for this thing, very thing. And you think you're not going to be trusted upon, you're not going to be believed. And how does it matter, even if they don't? I have all the means that I can use, and then they will trust you and walk with you. Let me tell you, people, I believe that God has already planned things way in advance. And He has allowed some of the problems and weaknesses before the world began, but none of those weaknesses are going to stop me from achieving my goals and achieving the goals that God has set for my life or for the life of His people. So you would be better off if you just trust God and move through. God will do wonders, not just in spite of your weaknesses. He would rather use your weakness and do wonders. I can tell you by experience that he has used my weaknesses and does things. He used the weakness of Judas Iscariot, and he did wonders. And the greatest wonder is Christ on the cross defeating the power of sin, and Christ resurrected defeating the power of the grave and death. And happened through the sinfulness of somebody. So it's okay. God would still use the weakness. God would still use some of the problems. And remember the objection that Moses raises. What does Moses say? Moses said, verse 10, but Moses said to the Lord, "Oh my Lord, I'm not eloquent, either in the past or since you have spoken to your servant." Why did he say this? You look at my past, I was not eloquent. Look at my today, when I have had such great experience with you. I saw the burning bush, but it didn't change my physical, appearance, or my disability is not gone. I'm still the same in spite of what I have seen. Imagine when you go to some of those meetings, some great meetings, like great atmosphere, and you come out of those meetings, your heart is like, excited about what you heard and all that stuff. But you go back home after 10 days, you realize that you have the same disability that you had 10 days back. I have gone meetings after meetings, but some of my problems didn't change as I wanted them to. And sometimes we go to those kind of meetings so that everything would change. And what Moses' objection is, God, I don't think I'm the right one, because the right one should have everything right in his body. No, I am the right one because I have a righteous God working inside of me and working through me. Not because everything is fine with me, but because everything is fine with his plan and purpose and ability. He can do it through me. So God said to him, the answer. Now, think about this. He saw burning bush. He stood in a place which was one of the most holy places, and the voice of the Lord comes to him. This is the holy ground that you're standing on. Take your sandals off. Imagine you're standing on the most holy ground. Imagine you hearing the voice of God. Imagine you hearing such a great witness of God's power, a burning bush, and still saying, I don't think I can do it. Why? Because I don't look at you and your ability. I keep looking at my disabilities. Friends, I've realized over the course of 31 years of my ministry that some of my disability still remains. But hey, God is not unable to do because of my disability. He is able to do everything he wishes and plans to do in spite of what I am. And he can use me. And he does. So he said to Moses, the answer that God gives to Moses, and that was not the end of all the experiences. When he said, nobody is going to believe me, the Lord gave him the signs. He said, okay, what do you have? Rod, throw it. And he threw the rod and turned into serpent, and he was afraid. God said, yeah, you're afraid. We're looking at his head. I want you to pick him up by the tail. You always have serpents rising up, but you always pick them through the tail, but don't pick them from the head. So God said, no. If you're afraid, don't worry. I know it's nothing. It's going to turn into rod from whichever direction you hold on to it or pick it up. But since you're afraid, go to the tail. It's okay. I know you're afraid. After seeing all these things, I know you're afraid. It's okay. But, try doing things differently. There's always a way out. So he did. And after that, God said, okay, put your hand under your cloak. And he did it, and takes out. It's all leprous. And God said, put it back again. And he did it. It comes out all fine, completely healed. All right. And then he says, even if they don't believe you now, I give you another sign, and that is, take the water from Nile River, put it on the dry ground, the water will turn into blood. At least they will believe you now. And in spite of hearing all these things and seeing all these things, holding on to the power of God, the miraculous thing he is holding on to, he can in fact touch that miraculous thing, and still he's saying, I don't think I'm the right one. You've chosen the wrong one, Lord. I don't think I can do it. And why? It's because look at my disability. Look at my deformity. Look at some of the problems that I carry. In spite of all the visions and things that I have, in spite of hearing all of those things, I still have some deformity and disability in me. And because of looking at those disabilities, I think I cannot. And God wants him to look up to him, because he is the author and the finisher of our faith. It never started with me. It never started with me. Okay, I choose to serve God. Okay, I choose to be a Christian. Not just serving God. In order to be a Christian, it is God's choice, and God has to make us start. And I thank God that he does, and he's not going to fail. I believe that one day he will make me stand before God the Father pure and blameless. It says with joy he's going to do it. He's going to present us blameless before God the Father with joy. He won't look at his church and say, God, I wanted to save, but I'm sorry I failed. This is not going to be, because he began a good work. Now think about this. Bible says when anybody begins to build a tower or a building or something, you better count the cost, that you have enough money or enough ability to build it up, then only do it. Otherwise, you would be counted as fool. So think about God. God began a work in you. Has he not counted the cost? He has counted the cost of not just, he has also paid the cost. By the death on the Calvary, everything is being paid and everything is available, and through which I can run my race. I will not give up in the middle. I will not give up in the middle of my journey. I believe that. You know why? Not because I'm trusting my ability, but because I'm trusting God. And that's what God wanted Moses to understand. Moses, I know it's me. You didn't seek me, I was. I have a plan and I'm coming to you. You were not looking for me. God, where can I find you in this wilderness? No. You were just doing your chores. You were doing the things that your father-in-law gave to you. I was the one who started this. And believe me, I can finish it. And I pray that you would believe God that he can finish it. He can finish it well. In spite of your weaknesses and sometimes through your weaknesses. He's going to do it. And so Moses said, I'm not eloquent in my speech, neither was I, nor I am today. After I've met with you some great experiences, I'm still the same. Listen to the answer that God gives to him. What is the answer that God gives to him? God said to Moses, oh man, this is difficult, and I don't want to rescue God. He does not need anyone to rescue him. Verse 11, he says, then the Lord said to him, who has made man's mouth? Now, most of these is about the mouth, like be able to speak and, able to hear, because that's what his objection was. I'm not eloquent. That's why the Lord says, who has made man's mouth? I would go ahead and say, who has made man's feet? Who has made man's heart? Who has made man's kidneys, pancreas, livers, and all those stuff? But why do you allow them to be disabled at times? Why? And God is saying, I have a purpose behind everything. There's nothing on the earth which doesn't have a purpose. You might not look at it with some purpose, but God has. Then the Lord said to him, who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Now he also involves like ability to see. So everything comes from him. He said, is it not I, the Lord? And again, I would say, I don't want to rescue God as if he hasn't said this. It is who said it. Is he still a good God? I'm telling you, If you just do not look at the means, but you look at the end, you would realize that it's good. Like the way sometimes you raise your kid, sometimes you teach them discipline, teach them some good things is through discipline. The means sometimes doesn't look great, but the end is so that I would be formed in the image of my Savior. That's the whole purpose. That's why Hebrews 12 was written. Why does he discipline? That discipline doesn't seem desirable. It does not. So it may not seem good to you at this point of time, but if it does good at the end, if it has a great end, the purpose is achieved. I pray that, and I believe that this would be good. It may not seem good in the beginning, and none of the disabilities or none of the problems that we go through seem good. But they do good at the end. Number one, they help me to be in the image of Jesus. They help me to go through some of those things that Jesus went through. They help me to be patient. They help me to be loving, more gentle, more humble. They help me to be. And that's why God allows certain things in our lives. And that's why God said to him, who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? I would like you to turn with me to 2 Corinthians. It's a beautiful passage there. 2 Corinthians, I was reading it yesterday again. It just blessed me again. 2 Corinthians and chapter 12. And how Paul is seeing the suffering here. And he calls it a matter of boasting and taking pride in. And he says, I will rejoice in my suffering. The word rejoice is not just rejoice, but talking great of. It's a matter of rejoicing and taking pride in something. So if you read 11th chapter and verses 22 onwards, this is what he's saying. I would rather read from 16. I repeat, let no one think of me foolish, but even if you do, accept me as a fool so that I may boast a little. What I'm saying with this boastful confidence, I say not as the Lord would, but as a fool. Since many boast according to the flesh, I too will boast, for you gladly bear with fools, being wise yourself. For you bear it if someone makes slaves of you, or devours you, or takes advantage of you, or puts in airs, or strikes you in the face. To my shame, I must say we are too weak for that. But whatever anyone else dares to boast of, I'm speaking as a fool, I also dare to boast of that. Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they offspring of Abraham? So am I. Are they servants of Christ? I am better one. Oh my. I'm talking like a madman, with far greater labors, far more imprisonments, with countless beatings, and often near death. 5 times I received at the hands of the Jews the 40 lashes less one. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and a day I was adrift at sea, on frequent journeys, in danger from rivers, danger from robbers, danger from my own people, danger from Gentiles, danger in the city, danger in the wilderness, danger at sea, danger from false brother, in toil and hardship, through many a sleepless night, in hunger and thirst, often without food, in cold and exposure. And apart from these other things, there is daily pressure on me of my anxiety for all the churches. Who's weak and I'm not weak? Who's made to fall and I'm not indignant? If I must boast, I will boast of the things that show my weakness. Now, who's going to, it's difficult in today's world. You stand up before the church and say, I boast in my weaknesses, because most of the people are ready to hear the end part of your story and how great a rescue it was, of how great, a wonderful end it had. But let me tell you, our story does not end on this part of life. It does not end. So why do we seek a great end in the interval? This is just the interval of the movie. We have something more to go. We have some great future to look to. And that is why when you look at what you're going through, this may not be your end. Even if I am killed by somebody, I'm martyred, I know that's not my end. I'm going to be with my Christ for eternity, and my end is Christ himself. I would know him, love him, see him as he is. So this is not the end of my story. If I die today, it's not the end of my story. I don't know. I always thought, and I still this thought comes to my mind, that I would die a martyr. Though I want to live and I want to grow old with my wife. That's my desire. Initially, no, I got married and I thought that's a great idea. I would be martyred as a martyr. But then over the course of time, I realized how beautiful and great my wife is, and I just pray, Lord, yeah, that martyrdom is great, but would you help me live with my wife, and would you let me grow old with her? That's my desire, but who knows? And since we do not know, again, I would take joy, and I know that at the time when situation arises, God would strengthen me to face some situations. I met a man who's like 70, and he went through some of the situations. He had to run from people. He was attacked multiple times, and he was stoned at. And he said, Michael, when you think about it, you would feel fear gripping your heart. But when you're in that situation, God gives you such grace and ability that with boldness you will be able to confess him. He will give you the ability. He'll give you the power. So look at Paul. But this is not the end. He continues his discourse about that, and then he says, I will go on boasting. So here Paul is boasting about his suffering. But look at 12th chapter, same 2 Corinthians chapter 12, and verses 5 to 10. I'll read. It says, on behalf of this man I will boast, but on my own behalf I will not boast, except of my weaknesses. Though if I should wish to boast, I would not be a fool, for I would be speaking the truth, but I refrain from it so that no one may think more of me than he sees in me or hears from me. Wow, listen. He says, so to keep me from becoming conceited, because of the surpassing greatness of the revelation, a thorn was given in me in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to harass me, to keep me from becoming conceited. Twice he said, to keep me from becoming conceited. To be proud of something other than Christ. There are chances. And that's why he said twice, he says, so that I would not be proud of anything else but Christ and his glorious grace. I would not take pride in anything but his grace and mercy on me. And that's why God allows certain things, and God sends rather certain things. With the revelation, a messenger of Satan to harass me. Now, who would think harassment as something that, God not just allows, but sometimes sends? Harassment. Why would the messenger of Satan buffet me? Why? So there is an end. God says that I want you to look like me one day. And I want you to act like me. I want you to behave like me. I want you to understand me very well. And that's why sometimes you go through those painful situations. And listen, God is not just allowing it. God is not just allowing it. When God gave him a lot of revelations, God said, I need to give you something more to keep you humble. And that is a thorn in the flesh. It's been given to me. It's been given to me. Wow. But listen what he calls it with, the things that he calls it. He says, it's Satan to harass me, to keep me from becoming conceited. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord about this, that it should leave me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for me, for my power is made perfect in my weakness. Yes, that's what I'm looking for, power. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weakness, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. But where did you see this power setting him free from that harassment? Where do you see this power setting him free from all kind of discouraging things? No. So what is this power doing? If power is resting upon me in the midst of this difficulty, what is this power doing? This power of God helping you to bear a good witness in the midst of difficulties, in the midst of all the problems. There was a young man who came to me just recently. I was preaching in one place. He's a doctor. He's got a rare disease, some skin problem. There's no cure for that problem. Nobody in the world has been cured of that. So he was in one of the meetings. He was a Hindu doctor. So he came to one of the services and God healed him. He was praying. He was at the altar call and he received the Lord and he gave his life to the Lord and God healed him. And he bore testimony of that. It's a rare disease. It very 0. Some percent people would ever have it. Rarest of rare diseases and no cure. And he was cured. But after 4 years of his cure or him being cured, he started to have that itching again. He started to have those boils again and those problems again after 4 years. And then I was there preaching and he comes to me and says, Pastor, I'm ashamed to let people see my wounds now because they have come back again after 4 years. 4 years I enjoyed my healing. And I have it again. I'm just ashamed. I don't know what to say to people. Should I tell them or should I just keep hiding it? I've been hiding for last 2 years now, my problems. And I said, you know what? You would do good if you go to the people and right away say, 4 years my Jesus allowed me to live without this problem. My Jesus allowed me to see freedom from it. And after 4 years, I have it back again. But guess what? I'm not as troubled as I was. I am not as frightened as I was. Because I have found Christ because of this problem. And now, I have an opportunity to declare before people that Christ is such a great treasure, greater than the healing itself. He is such a great treasure. I said, are you at peace? He said, fully at peace. My only problem is that how can I show it to people that I testify that I'm healed? I said, the same way you went to people and said, I'm healed by the power of Jesus. You go to people and say, I have this problem again for his glory. I don't know how, but one day it's going to be revealed to me. You go to people, it's easy. I said, you would be amazed to know how many people you have helped because there are a lot of people trying to hide their problems from others because they think as a Christian you should not have problems. You go and bear testimony, you're going to help a lot of people in the church. A lot of people in the church. And I shared with you my testimony. We have seen a lot of great signs and wonders in India. By the prayers, God has granted children to those who did not have any. For years and years, they didn't have. Doctor gave up hope. And here we praying, sometimes a lady lost a young daughter of hers. She lost a daughter who was like 7 years old or 6 years old. She lost a daughter and she was in pain. She decided to still come to the church, and I was in that service. I just went ahead and I started praying, and one of those urges that you have. And I said, exactly 9 months from today, you will have a son. That was something that I spoke, and later on, and I was like, God, please come through. Come through. You have to. I just felt like I have to say that. And I, not just to pacify her and calm her down, but I just felt like this is what God is going to. And God exactly did. Believe me, 9 months and 1 day, she had a baby boy. All these things. But I look at myself, we had 3 miscarriages and no child of our own. But God has given us 10 children now, and I would not like to trade this life for any other. Believe me, friend. And today, I thank God for everything that happened. Everything. We went through some difficult times. My wife would cry. She would not like to live. She wanted to die. But I would not like to trade this life for any other thing. Believe me. And I think I have the same love for my children as any biological father would have. If you doubt that, have some competition. I don't know what kind of competition. Come up with something. You would find that I am no less than you in raising those children. I just enjoy that. My family enjoys that. My wife enjoys whatever we have right now. But sometimes it takes years to understand what God had in store. My story is like on the first day of our marriage, we were about to consummate our marriage when we were praying, and I felt like God is telling us that we have to raise the orphans. And we had forgotten about it after marriage. So we had 3 miscarriages, and my wife also agreed to that on that same evening. And in fact, she went ahead and prayed, God, even if you do not give us our own, we will raise those children as our own children. So we never had a plan for orphanage or something. We always wanted to adopt them, not just give them food, shelter, and clothing and education, but give them our very selves. And this is what happened after the 3rd miscarriage. One after another, kids started coming to our lives. And they just made our lives beautiful. And one more time, I would like to say, I would not like to trade this for any other thing. And I would just thank God for however He chose this to happen. However, it seemed good to Him, because there are so many people out there in this world who need to hear my story. Believe me. Me and my wife, we traveled to different places, and pastor would come to us and said, Pastor, can you talk to us about family relations, and can you talk to us about children and having no children? Because in India, it's like, if you say it, you're going to have it. You know, I wish that it was never true. Why? Because I have said so many things that should never have happened. So I shouldn't have all the power in my tongue. I should have all the power in God who controls my tongue. And I pray that He would control my tongue. So, listen what He is saying. He says, my power is made perfect in my weakness. Right in the midst of your weakness, His power is at work. What is His power doing? His power is making you conform to the image of Jesus. Understand His heart. Understand His passion. See Him as the greatest glory, the greatest joy. See Him as all-satisfying being, all-satisfying blessing. And then he says this, therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, then I'm content. Why did he say for the sake of Christ? It might be because of some of his own choosing, some of his own decisions, some of his own problems. Why did he say for the sake of Christ? Let me tell you, when I have dedicated my life to the glory of Jesus Christ, and I've said, Lord, whatever happens, let it be for your glory, I'm telling you, He knows how to use those words, how to use those prayers and bring it to fruition. And let it all be for the glory of God. Let it all be for the sake of Christ. For the sake of Christ. Could this insult be for the sake of Christ? Because that's what he talks about. His suffering is not just suffering, what he calls them weakness, what he calls them harassment, what he calls them is thorn. Then now he calls them with other names: insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. And every time this word weakness is used in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, the same word is infirmity. There was a spirit of infirmity in a woman. She was, bent down. It's the same thing. Jesus healed a lot of infirmities of the people. It's the same word. So Paul is using the same word, infirmity, my disabilities, my problems, my physical ailment, insults and hardships and persecutions. All of these things he's categorizing in my infirmities, which is my weaknesses. But he's saying, I will gladly boast in them. Why? For the sake of Christ. God, could you be glorified in this situation? Yes, if you can trust me in this situation, I'm going to be glorified in this situation. Believe me, friend, it's all a matter of trust. Moses, your greatest problem is that you're not able to believe that I can use this weakness of yours for my glory. And God said to him two things, and I promise you these two things will be with you forever. God promises these two things forever. I don't know if you're going to have 10 children or just 15 or 5. I don't know. But one thing is promised for sure. I don't know if you're going to have $1 million or just 100,000 or maybe 10. I don't know. But what I know for sure is God promised Moses this one thing which he has promised to everyone. He said, I will be with your mouth. Number 2, I will teach you. And he said, no, Lord, send somebody else. And God said, no. And Bible says, the anger of the Lord was kindled. Why? Why are you angry? Because he wants a team? No, my only problem is that he's not able to trust me. Having team is not a problem. Having somebody to work alongside is not a problem. But my problem is that you see yourself as too weak. And you keep looking at yourself as you're the one who's going to do things. You keep looking at God. He's the one who's going to do it in you and through you. I've realized that God has come through in the greatest hour of my greatest weaknesses. I'm telling you, the day I felt I'm the most inadequate one, I am not able. That's when I felt the power of God come through me. And it is all because God is gracious. He says, Moses, one thing that you can trust upon, and that is, I will be with you. And I will teach you. And sometimes we don't want a God who's always out there trying to teach us. Yes, every situation, he says, I will be with your mouth and teach you what to say. And not just what to say, but also how to say. But I'm not eloquent. I'll tell you one thing. How many of you know that 16th chapter of Mark and verse 14, Bible says Jesus rebuked his disciples for their unbelief. He rebuked his disciples, the one that he kept them for almost 3.5 years as his disciples. He taught them. And after that, he rebuked them for their unbelief. And in the very next verse, he sends them out to preach the gospel to the whole world. Really? Can you send people like this who you have to just, scold at the last moment? It's like, I'm about to give my examination and here comes my teacher. Oh, you know nothing. You need to know a lot of things. I'm sorry. But I've been in those situations. I'm telling you, I have never been a good student. Every time I was about to appear for examination, the last day I would like to read from cover to cover. And it seemed like impossible. God said, I will teach you. Look at how I'm teaching my disciples. God will teach you, friends. What to say, how to say. Not only what to say, how to say, but every part of your body is one day going to glorify God. So praise God for everything. Be in faith. The faith should be, I will accomplish what God has called me to. I will finish my course. I will be on it and not under it. I will finish my course. And that's why Mark chapter 16 and verse 20 ends with this. And they went out and preached the gospel, and God was with them, confirming the word with signs and wonders. With those whom you don't agree with, lot of times they showed their unbelief instead of belief. God said, yes, I'm going to be with them. I will be sending my spirit on them, and I will be with them using them for my glory. It's okay to be weak at times. It's okay to see your hardship as sometimes like, can I still do the work of God, finish the work of God with these? And God would say, don't look at your hardships only, but I pray in the midst of your hardships, look at me. I can do it. I'm the one who began this, and I'm the one who's going to finish it. Our competence, our sufficiency, Bible says, is of God. Our sufficiency is not of ourselves. I am insufficient. For when Christ lives in me, I'm sufficient. I don't know why. Some people need to be involved more in the ministry, because sometimes you look at yourself and say, me? You think I can do it? You distrust yourself so much. And I was praying last night, and I felt like I need to say this even for Sunday school ministry and for other ministries in the church. Sometimes we look at ourselves, I don't think I can do it. And you've been running away from the call of ministry. But I pray, in spite of your weaknesses, just trust God. Trust God. Step up. And ask God to show you. And not just ask God. Ask your leaders, what area can I be used best? In what area? And I would like to use my talent and everything that I have. Even if you look at yourself and say, I really don't have any talent, you don't know. You don't know. And I pray that you would be used by the glory of God and for the glory of God. That's why God said to Moses, I will be with you. Your greatest strength is the presence of God with you, in you forever. That's one thing promised forever. Your greatest strength is that God will teach you what to say. God will teach you what to do. God will teach you difficult times and difficult situations. God will teach you. One last story I would like to finish. I was in California. This was my first time. And I usually, I would not get any invitation to preach. But one friend of mine introduced me to a church, and the church said, okay, we have a youth group, and I want you to talk to them when we are having the services. I said, okay, that's okay. So there were 4 young people, and I started talking to them. That was my second trip, and my vocabulary was small, and I just began talking to them, and I found all 4 of them just not interested. And young people in India, in America, they would let you know what they feel. They were, just another 2 minutes, and I knew what they're feeling. Believe me, they were looking at each other as if they're not interested. And I was like, God, this is the only opportunity I have this whole week, and they are not interested. I'm telling you, I was this close to crying. Should I be here in the first place? And I started praying in myself. I started praying in tongues in myself. And I just prayed. And then I prayed, Jesus, help me. I don't know what to say. Few minutes, and I just felt like you share this story. And I started sharing one story about my one of the games that I had played. Sure enough, they started looking at me. And at the end of that meeting, all 4 of them were on their knees in tears. I had never seen that happen, even in India, that all 4 of them would be on their knees, repenting and crying. All 4 of them were on their knees. So I would look at myself and look at God, and I say, oh, you've come. You've done it. It's not me. I couldn't have done it. Friends, you just do not know how God will break through and how God will use you. So don't look at your weaknesses and say, I cannot be used. God can still use you and use your weakness for His glory. And sometimes He just does not allow it. Sometimes He gives it so that God would be glorified in and through you. And you would see that in spite of the weakness, you're as strong as God wanted you to be. God bless you, friends. Thank you.